So I'm going to demonstrate how to create a connection to a SQL database within Microsoft Excel. So we'll go ahead and start Excel. I will admit I'm not by no means an expert in this, so if something doesn't work for you or you need help figuring something out, I probably wouldn't be the best person to provide the information, but I at least wanted to show how this works. So we'll just do a blank workbook. In terms of what I've seen, I have always seen things be, in pivot table form that have some kind of external data source, which you see here. So on the insert ribbon, you have pivot table, and you have table. I'm not sure if table. Yeah, it doesn't look like table itself supports external connections. So I think I've only seen it used with the pivot table. So when you click on this and you click use an external data source from here, you'll click choose connection. I already established this connection when I first started and started to investigate this. I didn't have any connections found. So what I did was click this browse for more. I'm assuming you will see this will point you to under your users, under your My Documents. You have a folder that's called My Data Sources. Originally, it by default opened to this folder. It didn't have this. This was what I had just created, and I clicked New SQL Server Connection and just hit Open. It asks for the server name, which you can always get your server name from your connection here. So here's your server name. It's also here at the top, so that'll be your server name when you're connected. So we'll go back to Excel. We'll put that in as the server name. Here we'll just use Windows Authentication again. We'll go to Next. We'll select the database that contains the data we want. AdventureWorks is what we've been working with in this class. Here, it'll allow you to enable a selection of multiple tables. I'm not even going to go into any of that. However, you can see kind of some of the objects within the AdventureWorks database. And you see these things that start with V. That denotes that it's actually a view, which we haven't talked much about views in this course. However, they're just essentially stored queries that generate something that looks like a table from another SQL table. And so, those are views. It says over here on the right that they're type view. Really what we're interested in are the tables. That's what we've been working with. So you can see there's tables here. And you can see the owner refers to the schema. We've been working a lot in the person schema, also a few tables in the production schema. However, for this example, since it's a pivot table and usually things are aggregated across, I'm actually going to work in this transaction history table within the production schema. So let's select that. Production schema, transaction history. And so I'll click Next. This essentially creates this connection that you saw when I browsed for connections to the specific table. You can fill out what you want here. I'm just going to click Finish and then OK. And so it brings up your pivot to your traditional pivot table with the fields over on the right, the fields from the table. So I think transaction date was something that makes sense to put in a pivot table. So you can see here I can expand out Q3. These are transactions from 2013, 2014. It looks like, and then I can do something like I think it was. See, sometimes I have to look at the table to understand. I think actual cost is probably what we want. So we can look at what was the cost of the products produced on each day. I assume that's what this table looks like. It's a product that's basically filling an order and it's processed on this particular day and it costs a particular amount. So I'm going to look, and since it's in the production schema, I'm assuming it's part of whatever this factory or company is producing. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that in the values field, and here you can see we have this sum of actual cost. For each day. We can change the format of the dollars. Looks like 13.8 million in 2013 and 13.5 in 2014. It's probably useful to expand these. I thought it would expand all. Let me see if that's, yeah, so you can expand entire field. So that gives you the quarters. Here you can expand even further. So that should give you everything by month. For those who haven't worked much with pivot tables, and I'm certainly one of those people, sometimes you might just want something where you can copy paste just the months, and really that's something that you change on the Design tab under Pivot Table Tools, Report Layout. You'll show in tabular form. That is not what I'm used to seeing. Compact form. I'm sorry, this didn't exactly work as I was intending. Yeah, so I'll have to take a look at that and see if I can find that. This is Microsoft Excel 2016, so it looks like they did change some of that. So it might be something. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. So sorry, I led you astray there. But anyway, this would show you, with subtotals, the particular actual cost per transaction date. And then this sort of gets you there if you don't show the subtotals. But anyway, so that was one kind of analysis that you could do within Excel from a SQL table. You can also, it looks like it automatically populates these fields. That's okay. So I guess that's how it handles it in 2016. I do remember seeing something about this where it will automatically generate years, quarters for particular dates as fields. Those who have worked with Power BI have heard something similar for that software. But anyway, the other thing I was going to look at instead of actual cost across transaction date was the actual reference order ID. So we can these are the sums, which if you look at the table, Excel doesn't always pick the most intuitive field. So I was actually looking for something like a count, a count of the specific reference order ID, just to see how many orders they were being filled each day, or at least that's the way I would interpret it. So you're really looking for a value field setting of count. I'm not sure if that even gets us what we're specifically looking for, because I'm not sure it doesn't give you the distinct categories within each for each month. So I'm not sure if there's a way to count unique values. I'm not exactly sure. There probably is a way to do it, but I'm not going to fuss too much with it now. But you could think of this as your count of number of records for each transaction date. And we can kind of verify that in SQL really quick with a query if we want to do that. So we can do, we'll select count. Count star as count. And then we'll have to create basically years and months for transaction date. That's the way it's grouped. So create one with a year, and then also one with a month. And we'll return it from that table. And then we'll also have to group by those two fields we created that we're going to aggregate across. Remember, you don't include the column alias in a group by. Include that, and then in order to order the results, I forgot the by there. In order to order or sort the results in a way that we want, or that are displayed as they are in Excel, we'll first order by year, then month. So this should return something similar. Here's your count. So if we go, they look roughly the same. If we go over here, we can verify that we've basically done the same thing in Excel. Here's month 7, that's July. We have a count here of 3944, so that's the number of records and that sort of thing. So this is basically how you would establish a connection. You can do far more complicated things, including almost like a SQL type query. I've seen that probably within the, I think it has to do with the change data source. I've seen kind of people generate types of queries with this particular tool. Yeah, so I have seen, I think this is essentially where you can alter these fields in here in the connection properties to basically alter the table or the results from the table to display them in a way you want. So I've certainly seen that happen before. Once you get a large number of records in Excel, I will say this, refreshing the data source, you could see that it quickly generated a little thing there and pulled the rows. I've seen, you know, in the real life, I've seen these kinds of things take 30 seconds or so. So it does start to bog down somewhat frequently, or somewhat quickly, I mean. But you know, Excel, it offers, you know, especially since companies continue to rely on Excel to a great extent, Excel continues to kind of offer you know, a workable solution for working with these tables and that sort of thing. So that's how you do this. If you have any questions, again, I probably won't be able to help much, but feel free to ask.